Gate 22B by Evelyn Grace. The thing about airport chairs is that they're built to discourage conversation. All that molded plastic, designed by someone who clearly believed human connection was a design flaw. All that strategic spacing that turns waiting areas into antisocial obstacle courses. Maddie Clark appreciated that, usually. She had noise-canceling headphones that cost more than her rent, an unopened book she'd been meaning to read for 6 months, and a carefully curated playlist titled Introvert Emergency Kit. She was ready to be alone in peace for the next 2 hours. Until the guy sat next to her. Not just near her, next to her. Gate 22B had 39 open seats. She'd counted them while waiting for her delayed connection, and he chose the one beside her carry-on like he was claiming territory. She peeked at him over her mirrored sunglasses, the kind she wore specifically to avoid eye contact in situations like this. Beard scruff that suggested he either forgot to shave or was going for the ruggedly disheveled look. Gray hoodie with paint spatters on the sleeves, large coffee that smelled suspiciously expensive for airport fare. Kindle with a cracked screen and a back cover held together with what appeared to be determination and electrical tape. No obvious red flags. Then again, the worst ones never came with warning labels. Still, suspicious. She had perfected the art of airport invisibility over years of solo travel. Head down, earbuds in, practiced don't talk to me expression activated. It was a system that worked. Until now, apparently. Then he spoke, and her carefully constructed bubble popped. Sorry, is this the flight to Denver? She pulled out one earbud and blinked at him. Yeah. He nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. They just changed the gate from C11 about 20 minutes ago. I think some folks missed the update. Saw a few people still camped out over there looking confused. She looked around the mostly empty gate area. Oh, well that explains why it's so quiet. I got the notification on my phone 30 minutes ago. Smart to check your app. Half the passengers are probably still wandering around C11, wondering where everyone went. He glanced at the empty seat on his other side, then back at her with a sheepish expression. I can move over a seat or two if you want. I wasn't really thinking when I sat down. I just saw an outlet for my phone and made a beeline. She smiled in spite of herself, caught off guard by his answer. No, it's fine. I'm just used to traveling solo. Kind of forgot people actually talk to each other in airports. He raised his cup in mock cheers. Solo travelers of the world, united by overpriced coffee, mild gate anxiety, and an uncanny ability to sleep in chairs designed by sadists. That made her laugh. A real laugh. Not the polite airport chuckle she usually deployed. What are you heading to Denver for? Wedding. My cousin's. I'm the designated beard and flannel cousin who they wheel out for outdoor photos and manual labor. He gestured to his hoodie with self-deprecating humor. You? Job interview. Outdoor event coordinator position with a company that does destination weddings in the Rockies. Nice. So you're the person who makes weddings actually happen, while people like me just show up and try not to trip during the processional. Hopefully, assuming my layover doesn't implode and I don't show up looking like I've been sleeping in airports for 12 hours. Been there, he said, then stuck out a hand that was warm and calloused in a way that suggested he actually used them for things other than typing. I'm Caleb, by the way. Professional wedding guest and part-time furniture maker. Maddie, professional event planner and full-time overthinker. 30 minutes later, they were still talking, and Maddie had completely forgotten about her book. Caleb had a dry sense of humor that snuck up on you, a quiet confidence that didn't need to announce itself, and a running commentary on airport fashion that had Maddie snorting into her bottle of overpriced water. He pointed at a man wearing flip-flops and a business suit. Business on top, vacation on bottom, the mullet of travel fashion, and a woman pulling a suitcase covered in what appeared to be several dozen luggage tags. Either she's the most well-traveled person alive, or she's collecting them like Pokemon cards. She told him about her color-coding system for event planning that involves 17 different highlighter colors and a filing system that would make librarians weep with joy. He told her about his sister's sheep farm in Vermont, and how he'd started making furniture after helping her build a new barn and discovering he was surprisingly good with his hands. They discovered a shared love of hiking that went beyond Instagram-worthy summit photos, strong opinions about proper some more ratios, golden brown marshmallows only, never charred, and a mutual distrust of people who brought tuna fish sandwiches on planes. It's basically biological warfare, Caleb had said, shaking his head in disgust. The gate area slowly filled with delayed passengers from C-11. Flights were announced over static-filled speakers, and a baby somewhere behind them began the kind of sustained crying that suggested they were either teething or staging a protest against commercial aviation. But Maddie felt calm, present, like the constant background hum of anxiety that usually accompanied her travels had been turned down to a manageable volume. Like this was supposed to happen, which was insane, because airport magic was a lie. That's what she'd always told herself. Airports were places where dreams went to die, where overpriced food met understaffed customer service, where brief delays turned into all-day odysseys. They weren't places where you met people. They were places you endured. But when the gate attendant announced pre-boarding for passengers with small children and those needing extra time, Caleb turned to her with an expression that suggested he was about to ask something important. "What seat are you?" She glanced at her boarding pass, crumpled from being shoved in and out of her pocket. 18B. No way. He held up his own ticket with the kind of disbelief usually reserved for lottery winnings. 18A. They both paused, staring at the identical row numbers like they might change if they looked hard enough. "I swear I didn't plan this," he said quickly, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "I'm not running some weird seat stalker scam. I literally picked the cheapest option when I booked 3 days ago. I'm too broke to be strategic about airplane seats." She laughed, a sound that surprised her with its genuine warmth. "You think I'm fancy enough for seat selection? I booked the 'please don't make me sit in the middle seat. I'll take whatever you've got' fare." He grinned, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made her forget they were surrounded by the fluorescent lit chaos of commercial travel. We're practically fate adjacent at this point. They sat down in row 18 like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they hadn't just met at gate 22B 45 minutes ago, like she hadn't already mentally prepared herself for 2 hours of reading in silence and now found herself hoping the flight would somehow be longer. He didn't push for conversation, which she appreciated. He pulled out his battered Kindle, offered her a stick of gum with the casual courtesy of someone who understood airplane etiquette, and settled into his window seat. She turned toward the aisle, watching other passengers shuffle past with their carry-ons and travel pillows, the familiar choreography of people finding their seats. Somewhere over Nebraska, or maybe Kansas, the Midwest being one endless expanse of geometric farmland from 30,000 feet, she glanced sideways and found herself whispering, "Do you believe in that kind of thing?" He looked up from his Kindle, where she could see he'd been reading something that looked suspiciously like a romance novel. In what? Fate. Coincidence. People meeting at exactly the right time in exactly the right place. She felt foolish saying it, like she was admitting to believing in fairy tales or horoscopes. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the seat-back tray table like it might hold the answer to one of life's fundamental questions. Then he said, "I think sometimes life gives you moments. Not the big, obvious ones, not lightning strikes or orchestral swells, just quiet chances to notice something, someone. And maybe the magic isn't in the moment itself, but in choosing to pay attention to it." She bit her lip, considering this. "I noticed you picked the seat next to my carry-on when you had 38 other options." He laughed softly, a sound that somehow managed to be both self-conscious and confident. "Well, I told you it was for the outlet, but maybe I was hoping you'd be interesting enough to talk to." Her heart did something irregular against her ribs, the kind of flutter she hadn't felt since college and had assumed was a casualty of too much dating app disappointment. When the plane landed with the gentle bump that always made her grateful for pilots and physics, they walked together through the terminal corridors, past other reunions, past hurried travelers, pulling wheeled suitcases like reluctant pets, past everything that usually made airports feel like purgatory. At the baggage claim, they stood watching the carousel turn with hypnotic consistency, neither of them particularly eager to spot their luggage. Maddie finally turned toward the terminal exit, the spell of airplane conversation beginning to fade into the reality of ground transportation and separate destinations. "This is me, rental car pickup." He nodded, adjusting his backpack strap. "Same, rideshare lot." They stood in that awkward pause that felt like the end of a really good book, the moment where the characters either kiss or part ways forever, and you're not sure which ending you're hoping for. "I hope your cousin's wedding goes well," she said, meaning it, "and that you don't trip during any processionals. I hope your interview knocks their socks off, and that you get to plan weddings in places that look like postcards." A pause stretched between them, filled with ambient noise of airport life and possibilities neither of them wanted to name. Then Caleb reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out his boarding pass, the physical stub that most people threw away the moment they stepped off the plane. He flipped it over and handed it to her, their fingers brushing in a way that felt both accidental and inevitable. Scrawled across the back in handwriting that suggested he'd actually paid attention in elementary school. For your next layover, coffee's on me. Then his number. And underneath it, P.S. I don't usually talk to strangers, but I'm really glad I did. She looked up at him, holding the boarding pass like it might dissolve if she gripped it too tightly. Maybe this is a moment. Maybe it's the start of one.